Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. If you've ever felt like you were giving more than you were getting, like you kept showing up, trying harder, bending more, and still something felt off, this conversation is going to hit you in a very real way. So this week, I'm doing something a little bit different. This is a bonus episode, an extra episode, and it comes from another podcaster. I want to introduce you to G-Rex and Dirty Skittles. They are the host of a show called Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. This is not your typical mental health podcast. It is raw, it's honest, sometimes messy, sometimes funny, but always real. They don't just talk about mental health, they live it out loud alongside their guests and their listeners. What makes this show different is the way they create space. There's no pretending, no fixing, no perfect answers, just real conversations about trauma, healing, boundaries, relationships, and figuring out life one step at a time. This part 2 episode is titled Building Healthy Boundaries After Childhood Trauma. If you've ever lived in survival mode so long that you don't even realize that you had a choice, then this episode is for you.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Shit That Goes On in Our Heads, the podcast where we normalize conversations around mental health.
That's right. I'm Dirty Skittles, and alongside my amazing co-host, G-Rex, we are here to share stories and tips from our incredible guests.
Each episode, we deep dive into struggles and triumphs of mental health, offering practical advice and heartfelt support.
Because no one should feel alone in their journey. Join us as we break the stigma and build a community of understanding and compassion.
Tune in, and let's start talking about the shit that goes on in our heads.
I remember learning like a lot of what you just said, like learning a lot of my reactions to things was protecting myself. Like I was always in survival mode. I was always in fight or flight. Like I was that. And just realizing that was how I was behaving was so like earth shattering because I just knew that to be, that's normal. Like that was my normal frequency.
Right.
Like I didn't, I didn't know.
And that's the deal with adult children. So one of the promises of being in that program, of the recovery of that program, is that you go from being a reactor to an actor in your life. So you're proactive rather than reactive. But here's why you're reactive. Because when you're in fight or flight mode, when you're constantly traumatized, you're in fight or flight mode, the way our brain works is that the executive functioning in the frontal lobe is basically shut off because all the energy that is used for thinking, which is an enormous amount of energy, is required to fight or flee. So that energy gets, funneled to, like, I call it lizard brain. This is like the layperson's explanation. So you can't think clearly. This is why when you're really angry, you can't think because you literally can't think. You can't access that part. And, speaking about this, I'm thinking about like, I'm one of those people who suffers from the need to understand things. Like, if I don't understand it, I am not buying into it. I just can't. And in the beginning, I was like, this codependence thing, like what it's this, it's almost like it's a syndrome. It's like there's all these different parts to it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And about 6 months into my recovery, I was listening to a podcast and it was with Tyan Dayton. And she is one of the vanguard of the whole codependence movement. She's a psychotherapist. She's an adult child herself. And this was like 10 years ago. So what she said on there was that she said, I've been around since the whole like codependence thing came along. And what's happened over time is that the theory and research on trauma has gone beyond that of codependence. And what we now know is that codependence is a result of trauma. And here's why. Because when we're traumatized, we go into fight or flight mode. And just what I just said, we're in lizard brain. We can't access frontal lobe. Well, here's the thing. The self is an ever-changing abstract construct, which is constructed and reconstructed constantly in the frontal lobe. Well, when you can't access frontal lobe, you must go outside of yourself. That's what codependence is. Codependence is essentially you don't pay attention to things going on internally. You're focused on other people, places, and things. What is he doing? What is she doing? What is he doing? What is he not doing? What is she not doing? What does he need? What does she need? What do they need? What does the situation need? What does the organization need? What does the cause need? And we're totally focused outside of ourselves because we don't know how to connect anymore because we've been so disconnected for so long. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like this giant chunk of understanding fell into place for me when I heard her describe that. And it really helped me to see like, oh, there's something physiologically that has happened that it's like I've created a default system of operating. I've created neural pathways, which are like grooves worn in my brain, default to chaos and drama and reactivity and that sort of thing.
I don't want to say how do you move past it or how do you heal from it, but how do you begin to kind of not fall back into those grooves? Like, how did that start for you?
There's a lot that goes into it. And like you said, like knowing that it's happening in the first place, like same. I was like, what? I didn't know I was a reactor, not an actor. So, one of the reasons that I became a boundaries coach is because of the massive and profound effect that building healthy boundaries had on my life. And I want to have it on other people. Because when I look back, I realize it was the boundary building process that taught me all of like how to become an actor rather than a reactor. Because when people think boundaries are saying no, it's way before that. It's what is okay with me and what's not okay with me. What do I want? What do I like? What do I need? What do I prefer? What's my responsibility? What's not? If you have been a people pleaser, if you have been an over accommodator, if you have been bending over backwards, if you have been a peacekeeper, if you have been a codependent, an enabler your entire life, you don't know yourself because you're so accommodating to everybody else. And you think, like, I was like, I'm a chameleon. I can fit in anywhere. I'm nice. That's why I help people all the time. Like, I truly thought I helped people because I was nice. And I remember early in recovery saying to this woman, okay, I'm starting to see that there's like this continuum of helpfulness, whereby on one end, we've got kindly, helpful, functional, healthy, helping behavior. And on the other end, we've got like dysfunctional, rescuing, fixing, saving, enabling, codependent behavior. And I think I'm getting the drift between, the difference between those two ends. It's in the middle of that continuum where I'm like totally confused. Like, how do you flip over from being helpful to being rescuing? And the woman was like, well, Barb, it really depends on why are you doing it? Why are you helping them? Are you helping them because you want to be helpful or because you want them to like you? And I was like, I'm totally doing it because I want to be helpful to them. And then that question like percolated in my brain. I was like, oh shit. It wasn't that I wanted them so much to like me. It was that I didn't want them to think I was a bad person. And to me, a bad person says no and is unhelpful. I learned that I was an approval seeker. If you had ever, I wouldn't have believed you. When I heard the term people pleasing, I'd never heard it before recovery, despite being 52 and years of work. And I was like, that's not me. I am such a people pleaser. I was in such denial about my own behavior. So I didn't really know what was okay and what was not okay with me. So the process of building boundaries is actually the process of getting to know yourself and creating a sense of internal safety within you so that you know I can withstand other people being upset with me. Like that was intolerable before. I can withstand the vicissitudes of life. Like shit happens in life. I will tell you, probably 85% less shit happens in my life now that I'm in recovery and have healthy boundaries because I didn't know how much drama and chaos I was creating. I think of it as like I was lobbing bombs into my own life, but I thought they were coming from outside. And I just had no clue. So learning how to build healthy boundaries taught me I had to figure out, is this okay with me? I never asked that before. Like it wasn't about me. It was about, is this okay with everybody else? I just withstood whatever came at me. I just dealt with whatever came at me. And so I got to know myself and then I got to understand. I had to experiment to figure out like what is okay and what's not okay. And I had to experiment with, how to voice my preferences and when to, and that sort of thing. And it's a journey of getting to know yourself. And so boundaries are about identity. Like, where do I end and other people begin? And, all those things I said, like what's okay and what's not okay. So when I start seeing it's not okay with me to be in a room where people are yelling. So I eventually, in the beginning, I can't get myself out of that room because I think I'm supposed to stay. But eventually, when I get myself out of the room, I've become an actor, not a reactor. And when I stop being around people yelling at me, and I'm just using that as one example of chaos, right? When people are yelling, it's just like, this is how I feel. Right? It's too much, right? I'm overstimulated. When I stop getting overstimulated, when I stop going into environments that trigger me, I'm not in fight or flight mode. I'm calm and I can access my frontal lobe and I can be even more of an actor rather than a reactor. So I think, it starts with awareness. This is something that's going on, that this is probably connected to growing up, whether it's from my family of origin or some other experiences I had growing up, that I actually do have choices. I haven't perceived that I had choices ever. I may not know what my choices are right now, but the idea that I have choices is like amazing to me. And then starting to make choices. Because I think another thing that boundaries are about, they're about learning to make choices in your life and realizing like I had no idea how much control I actually had over my life because I was essentially waiting for everybody around me to change, even though I had decades of evidence that they weren't going to change. And boundaries are also about getting into integrity with yourself. So like stopping doing things that do not feel right to you and doing more things that do feel right to you. Learning to fill your own cup first before pouring into other people's cups. So I love the metaphor of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Instead, you should pour from the overflow. Well, the only way you're going to have overflow is if you fill your cup first. But if you have been a people pleaser, accommodator, peacekeeper, rescuer your entire life, the idea of filling your own cup at all is insane. Never mind filling it first because you're a bad person. And so like everybody knows, everybody who's ever flown knows, they say, hey, if the oxygen mask falls down and you're caring for someone next to you, put your oxygen mask on first so that you don't pass out so you can help the other person. Right. So like they give those instructions for a reason because we can't help people when we're passed out or we can't help people as well when we're passed out. And You do not have to like run yourself ragged and exhaust yourself to be a good person. In fact, you get to be included in the people that you care for. You should be first. And it's not selfish.
God, this is such a timely conversation once again. So, when you guys were talking about trauma responses, right? So my trauma response before my suicide attempt was the most horrible trip to New York City. If you ever want to go back and listen to that episode, it's season 1, episode 3.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
The fact that nobody knew how depressed I was, that episode and the shit that happened on that trip, people should have figured that out. But here is the flip side of that. So after I started therapy, Barb, everything that you talked about, like setting the boundaries and being a people pleaser, well, I had a couple of other things going on, right? I'm an extrovert. I'm an empath. I took on everybody else's own shit, but I didn't take care of myself. Now this was like by February of 2023, right? I'm starting to figure out what the shit is. And that's by the time I hit my third therapist because, we had a speed date.
That's speed date.
But I was starting to figure out, yes, I was a people pleaser. Yes, I was all of those things. And then once I stopped doing that, I started feeling better. And I have now carried those lessons on for the last 3 years. I'm still learning. I still, sometimes I fall back into old patterns. I'm like, nope, we have that black box for a reason. Listen, but like, it makes a ton of sense. And like, if I had learned what you were talking about 20 years ago, my life would have been so much different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I remember Dirty Skittles trauma response.
Yeah.
I was the one calling every day. I didn't care that you were on leave. I would still call every day. We would find one thing that would bring us joy, one thing to make you feel better.
Yeah.
And one thing of what you're going to work on today. And I kind of had that little checklist I would go through. And I know that on the other end of the line, I couldn't see her because we just talked on the phone. She'd be like, fuck, like, stop.
No, but she was so supportive. Like, I think that's the thing too, like, and it might tie back into like finding community or finding your village, right? And even if it was like, even if I couldn't answer the phone that day, because like I just, I'm tapping out. Nobody talked to me. I couldn't want anything to do with anybody. You still were supportive. Hey, I hope you get some rest today.
That someone gives a shit about you. Like I've had probably a half a dozen of like situational depression episodes, like really bad. And I remember this one time back when we had answering machines and you had the blinking light when there was a message.
Yeah.
I had this one friend who was also depressed. I'm like, can you just call just so that when I get home, there's a blinking light so that I know that somebody on the planet gives a shit about me. But because I didn't want to tell anybody that I was depressed except for someone else who was depressed. And, one of my favorite sayings from 12-step recovery is we're protected when we're connected. And that means both connected, well, not just both, like connected to ourselves rather than dissociated, connected to other human beings because we're pack animals, and then also connected to a higher power, like an understanding. I am part of something greater than myself. I am not floating around in space disconnected from everything. And if you don't have that, you can cultivate that. And 12-step recovery is a place to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes such a difference, to know that there are other
having
people.
that like know you and know your history and love you anyway, you know?
Right.
I mean, my closest friends are people in recovery because we've been through the war together, you know, and we know each other's, you know, details and stuff like that. And we can see, you know, like I had this one friend who her father said some heinous shit to her and she was really taking it to heart. I'm like, dude, you're an adult child of dysfunction. Guess where it came from? That dude that's spewing that shit to you. It's bullshit. It's not true. Stop listening to him. Listen to me. Okay. I know you now. And I know who you are now. And this is what I know about you now. And she was like, oh my God. Like, thank you so much. And I couldn't have done all that if I didn't know her, know the history of her relationship with her father, and know this woman was a puddle when I met her. She is now this amazing mother, wife, entrepreneur, grad student, artist, creator, neighbor. She owns 2 homes that they've rehabbed. Like, she's this amazing human. She was a puddle when I met her. And so I've seen that. Her dad somehow doesn't.
It sucks.
It does suck. But the thing is, like, as we grow and learn more about ourselves, right? Because this is all shit they don't teach us in school. None of it. None yet. Like, we can grow and learn and be better people, be better friends to people that are going through that, be better to ourselves, right? Because I am the queen of negative self-talk. And I've been a little bit better lately. I'm the queen. Like, and I have a pro bono client right now, and she reminds me all the time, quit calling yourself dumb, quit calling yourself stupid. And so, like, that is getting kind of re-ingrained back into my head because, you know, once you hit 60, the brain's a little slower than it used to be. But it reminds me of that I am a good person and I am doing the right things and I'm growing and learning. And we had a little, like, my family was good, right? But we did have some dysfunction going on, you know, and as much as I want to like sugarcoat it and say, yeah, everything was life and was grand, it wasn't. And I learned to deal with it in super unhealthy ways. But as I got older, it was actually right after my mom passed away that I figured out, you know what, I need to get my shit together. And then I had my wife, and we've been together now for 30 years, and thank God for her. She gives me permission, not just permission, but like she kind of lets me go at my own flow. But she does call me out on my shit, right? Like, so if she sees me doing the people-pleasing thing or taking on more than my plate than I can fill on my plate, or if I have a little bit of cabin fever and I'm a little bitchy, like, she calls me out on that. And that I need that in my life. And I do the same for her, but maybe in a little bit more loving way.
That's great. And I think, you're talking about the shit that goes on in your head, and so when I was like in my late 20s, I read the book When Food is Love by Janine Roth. She's written like a million books since then. And it was the first time that I even knew that I had negative self-talk, because she would write out on the page, like, this is what my clients say to themselves in their head. And I was like, oh my God, I say that shit. And so, like, in that book, she kind of talked through like how to undo that. So you have to like know that you're doing it. And then you stop and be like, what am I trying to distract myself from? And then replacing the thoughts and all that stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm good. I cleaned up my negative self-talk. And then 25 years later, I got into 12-step recovery, and I realized, even though I always thought of myself as a powerful woman of agency, as an optimist, as a like motivated, inspirational, glass half full kind of person, and I am and was, I didn't know that I ruminated about the past. I didn't know I catastrophized about the future. I didn't know I complained all the time. I didn't know that I gossiped. I didn't know that I blamed everybody for everything. And I was like, whoa, like, what are the people who've never read a self-help book or done any introspection going through? Like, I was blown away at how much stuff was going in my head. And the way that I think about what's going on in my head is that I have this reservoir that's full of sewage and shit and poison. And if I just stop putting the poison in, eventually my reservoir will purify. But it's going to purify a lot faster if I put medicine in. And so the poison is the negative thoughts, right? And you can't just stop negative thoughts because your mind's job is to think. So you tell it. So I heard somebody say one time, I talk to myself more than I listen to myself. And I was like, yes. So I purposely have to put good thoughts into my mind. That's the medicine that's going to purify the well of my life. And so I think at this point, and for me, it's affirmations. I know some people think affirmations are bullshit. Good for you. They work for me. Right. And there's more. I do lots of other things too, but I'd rather have good thoughts going through my head that I'm putting into my head than the default bullshit that was going through. So now I feel pretty confident in saying I don't ruminate about the past at all anymore. It's not that I never complain. It's probably like 95% gone. I don't blame. I don't gossip. And I would say like catastrophizing has gone down by like, I don't know, 85, 90%. For me, the hardest thing in my life is to not live into the wreckage of the future. That's what I call it. But I don't do it anywhere near as badly as I used to. I would do it for months, never mind hours or days. I would do it for months at a time. And now I can't even imagine that an hour goes by before I notice that I'm doing it. I typically notice it because my nervous system goes haywire because of the thoughts. And sometimes the nervous system goes haywire before I'm even aware that I have a thought. Mm-hmm. And so I can nip it in the bud. So there's a lot of things that I've done. I think meditation is one of the most important things that I do. If I could never do any of the other practices that I learned, like all the tools of recovery I learned, if I could only do one, it would be meditate. Because it's just, I'm teaching my nervous system how to be calm and that this is normal. I'm creating new neural pathways in my brain for calm and serenity and peace, as opposed to chaos and drama and excitement.
I need to get into meditation.
I tried. Listen, I have ADHD. Right. It's like, oh, look, a squirrel.
So actually, I have a client. I got to find it. I wrote it down here. She's got a new meditation book that is. Oh, here we go. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics.
That sounds like you, G-Rex.
Yeah, it does.
Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. She was like, this book is like beyond anything she's ever read before. So meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. The thing is, there are 70 million ways to meditate. So if you think that you can't meditate, keep trying, because you will find something. It's like, there's so many myths. It's not about making your mind blank. It's about getting into the present moment. So what happens is, like I said, your mind's job is to think. Your mind is going to think, right? So when you're meditating, you're going to be doing whatever you're doing. Maybe you're just paying attention to your breath. Maybe you're saying a mantra. Maybe you're listening to a guided meditation. When you start to notice that your thoughts drift, you're like, oh, let me go back to the thing, whether it's your breath or the flame or the mantra or the audio or the video or whatever the hell it is, the thing that you're concentrating on. And that training, that bringing yourself back, bringing yourself back, that's what meditation is about. It's to train your mind so that when you're out in the world and you're not meditating, you've created this muscle where you're able to bring your attention back. So when you're in the middle of a conversation with someone and you realize, holy shit, I have not been listening for the last, I don't know how long, you're like, oh, I can come back. You notice. And so it's about training your mind. And I personally think that mindset work is the most important skill that you can develop, because your mindset determines everything about your life. And mindset is just volumes and volumes of stuff.
Yeah. I feel like that's why I get such good sleep now. Like my husband and I got these Aura rings, and every morning he'll ask me, what was your sleep score last night? And I didn't realize that it was a form of meditation ever. But the quickest way for me to fall asleep and have like a good solid sleep is to completely like visualize something down to like the very minuscule detail. And
Mhm.
it is difficult at first, like when I'm laying there, because your brain wants to like start thinking about what happened at work or whatever. And then I bring my mind back to the thing I'm visualizing. And before I know
Mhm.
it, I'm asleep.
That's
And then
so
I'll
good.
get like optimum sleep
Mhm.
on the app. And I'm like, oh. And then I was talking to somebody, they're like, well, that's a form of meditation. And I was like, is it now? Is it?
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the people that thought meditation was sitting down and like not thinking about anything except for how my body felt. And
Yeah.
then since that, I've done like a guided meditation, which I
Mhm.
found to be awesome. I
Yeah,
call
that's
my
my main
sourdough
form. Yeah. I my
guided.
I did Ziva meditation with Emily Fletcher for like 5 years, and that's where she had these certain things that you go through in your mind and then also a mantra, and I loved it, and then I don't remember why I got introduced to heart brain coherence meditation. That's what happened, but one of the things that Emily says is, "Who is the guy that's running around all over the earth telling people meditation is where you completely blank your mind?" It's like it's not a thing. Where the does that come from? She's like, I want to like smack down that guy, like
Yeah.
who is doing that?
Yeah. I tell G-Rex my sourdough is my moving meditation, is making bread.
Cool.
I'm like, I'm moving, I'm focusing on the one thing and I'm not,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
thinking
When
about
you
tomorrow.
laser focus on something, like you said, you're thinking about the minutest details of
Hmm.
something. That laser focus is meditate. It's like I am focused. I'm choosing to
Hmm.
focus my brain. I am in
Hmm.
charge of my brain. I'm being an actor, not a reactor in my
Hmm.
brain.
Okay. I have two questions for you.
Oh, da, da,
If
da,
you could go
da.
back in time to a younger version of Barb, give yourself some advice. How old are you when you go back in time and what do you tell yourself?
I'd have to pick teenager. Actually, no. I would be 11 because when I was 11, I decided I have to have an income. And I convinced my 12-year-old brother to have a paper route with me because you had to be 12 to get a paper
Mm,
route. And it didn't even occur to me until recovery was going on when I was 11 that I like had to have an income. And now I think that was around the age that I realized that my dad cheated and that my mom secretly smoked cigarettes. So I basically learned I can't trust my parents. And I have a very strong like productivity drive. The sense of accomplishment is really important to me. Like I feel the need to be productive. And I feel like I've gotten way healthier about it. But I think I would go back to my 11-year-old self.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
And say, you get to be taken care of. You do not have to earn a living. You do not have to prove your worth by being productive. You are worthy just by the mere fact of being born.
that's beautiful. In the last couple of years, what's been the hardest lesson you've had to learn?
The hardest lesson. Okay, so I don't know that I would call this the hardest lesson, but this is what's coming up for me. Is I think a huge portion of my journey of recovery has been understanding that what's going on out here does not have to dictate what's happening in here. And I've learned that and I've learned it and it's going deeper and deeper and deeper. So I was in a very difficult financial situation. And because of all the work that I do, I was like, every once in a while I would think about it and get triggered. But most of the time I was like, I'm good. I have great relationships. I love myself. I do inner child work and I have an inner family. I love my home. I love, my business. I love my clients. And I'm like, I'm good. And it was like, what the hell? Because there were years past where my finances weren't even that bad. And I felt like I was going to die like all the time. And I was constantly like scheming about, what I was going to do financially. And to really see that what's going on outside of me does not have to dictate what's going on. And this is like a theme. Like I have a sticky note on my mirror that has been there for years. I've been in recovery for over 10 and a half years. So it's probably about 10 years old. And it says something like this: it's a delusion that the outside world could give us satisfaction if only things went our way. And that's essentially what I'm saying is I've realized that I get satisfaction from my inside world. I get to create good feelings in my body. So I mentioned I do this heart brain coherence meditation. I've been doing that for a couple years. And there's one specific guided meditation that I listen to every day. And the guy says at the end, one of the things we do is generate wonderful feelings like gratitude and love and compassion and stuff like that. And at the end, he says, remember, these feelings that you're generating, they live in you at all times. They're not coming from outside. You have the ability at any moment to think about something that gives you joy, something that warms your heart, something that elates you, and generate that feeling within your body. And I do that a lot now. So my homeostasis is not triggered woman in fight or flight like it was for 50 something years. It's woman who's mostly got some really healthy, calm neural pathways going on, who's mostly generating good feelings. And then when I feel shitty, I can be like, okay, is this shitty like a warning? Like I need to pay attention to something? And if it is, then I can be like, okay, that was shitty. I acknowledge it. Now I'm going to take some action. Or is this shitty? Like I'm thinking about the past or I'm catastrophizing about the future. If that's the case, well, then I need to stop thinking about it and start generating good feelings.
Okay. Thank you.
I love that. Now for my questions, because they're a little funner. If your anxiety had a theme song, what is it and why?
I mean, I think when I start getting into anxiety, that I don't even know what there's got to be a song about never ending.
Yeah,
I don't
song
know
that
what
never
the name
ends.
of the song would be, but like in the beginning, it's like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in this forever. Like this is never ending, because I think that's just the nature of anxiety. It tries to like lie to you and be like, you're doomed forever, for eternity.
It's true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I could sing that song to myself.
This too shall pass. Like literally everything passes. Literally.
Barb, I loved having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Loved it. Me too.
Yeah,
I gotta say,
wonderful.
I love some women who can throw around the F word like I can. And
Well,
like
we're
that you
fucking
welcome it.
here.
I spoke last weekend at an ACA Share a Day thing. And like the person that spoke before me said fuck. And I was like, yes, I'm in. And so I got to be on a stage and tell my story and then do a training on boundaries and say the F word whenever it came up. And I was like, this is it. This like right here, like I could die right now. Like this was like the pinnacle for me. It was so good.
Like, you know what? Just sometimes it's just the word that we need to describe what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved your honesty and like all the lessons, because now I'm going to go back and kind of rethink about like all the stuff I did during Al-Anon and just like where my growth is, right? The last year, I grew a lot.
Yep.
Once I opened up my own business, I got a lot more creative. I got a lot more freedom, and I'm really happy. I'm really happy with where I am and what I'm doing. And all that shit I learned in therapy. Listen, if you're 20 years old and you're listening to this now, take care of yourself.
Yeah, go get some fucking help. Don't
Yep.
wait until you're like in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, like the three of us.
And don't
Yeah.
say irregardless.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't say irregardless.
Don't, because it's not a fucking word. It's just not. Stop it. Barb, thank you once again for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm G-Rex.
And I'm Dirty Skittles.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'd love to listen to your feedback.
We can't do this without you guys. It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.
If you've been listening, learning, and starting to see the patterns in your world, but still feel stuck in these same cycles, that's not because you're missing more information. It's because this is not something you're meant to untangle alone. There's a point where understanding is not enough, and you need support and actually moving through it. If you're there, I invite you to work with me. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. If you're ready to take that next step toward healing, check out my coaching services at www.covertnarcissism.com. I am here and ready to help. And don't forget to subscribe for more empowering episodes like this one. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.